Concord has been a well-established laboratory, 59 years as a fixed laboratory. And last year, you acquired a removable laboratory, which was completely analog. And you over at Concord being fixed was a digital laboratory. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the business, 59 years in the making?
Yeah. It's amazing that it's been that long, but the lab was founded by Carl Tarosian back in 1962. Carl's son Eric actually still works here. He's still a bench tech in our finishing department. And Eric joined the lab with his dad when he was younger. It's actually coming up on 40 years ago he joined the lab. And Eric figured out pretty quickly that he loved being a technician, but wanted a co-owner. So he and my dad had known each other, and my dad joined the laboratory as a partner in the early 90s. And they had a great partnership. They've worked together since then. And, my dad worked very hard to keep me out of the lab space, told me to go do something else. And I did for the most part. And then found my way back into the space on a consulting basis a few times for the lab, and kind of fell in love with what was going on in the space. So I joined back in 2008 on a part-time basis, which quickly became a full-time basis over the years. And then in 2018, I acquired the lab, and now I own the lab going forward into the future. But my father and Eric and the legacy that's here, they're all still here with us every day on the bench. So it's been a lot of fun.
Wow, that's amazing. So you chose a completely different career path in the beginning. Like you said, your dad was saying, hey, stay out of it and whatever. What brought you back in? Like, what was it that attracted you to come back into the laboratory business?
Yeah, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My dad, my grandfather, they've always had their own business. So I grew up in that world. And then going to college, getting my MBA, I was in the venture capital equities kind of fast-paced consulting world, and I loved it. It was great, but it didn't have that realistic feel to me. You're dealing with such large groups of people, and there was no personal touch to anything. So when I started my own consulting firm, I decided to focus more on the small business, the types of companies that I really felt like I understood, because I grew up in that space where that every conversation around the dinner table is about this business. It is everything to everybody in the family. And
right,
getting closer to that space and working in that space in the consulting basis really made me realize that I have one of those, and I can help all these other people's families, but I can also do that with my own also. And that was when the opportunity to come to the lab and help with the small few projects here and there presented itself. It made me want to dig a little deeper and get to know the lab space a little bit more.
Awesome. A year ago, you were a guest on A Look in the Lab. I can't believe it's a year, because I feel like it was yesterday that you were a guest with me. And you were just about to acquire a removable lab, which is a very different business model than what Concord was. Can you tell us about that decision process and what guided Concord to step into that segment of the industry?
Yeah, it was something that's always been on our radar. For decades, there was actually a small removable lab that leased space from us here at our labs. We were always two separate companies, but we always had that ability to work together on hybrid cases and things like that. And when the owner of the removable lab retired, the atmosphere shifted a little bit, and we focused on fixed, and that was really our game. But there was always that understanding that we didn't feel like we had everything in our toolbox that we needed to offer everything that our clients would need, not being full service. So it was always a project that we knew we wanted to undertake, but the logistics of it took a lot of planning. The removable and fixed world are so different, from every aspect. From the way the dentist approaches you and has conversations, to the way the workflow operates and pricing. And it was a tremendous amount of legwork to find the parallels between what was working in the fixed side and what would work in removable. So we spent a lot of time mapping out what that would look like before we decided to dive in and go for it.
And when you started actually getting out there and getting the work to start to flow, did you run the labs as two separate entities? Like, how did you do that?
No, we brought, the new removable lab came in under our name, one big happy family. And, we thought that that was crucial from a culture standpoint. There's this, it doesn't really matter what lab you're in. There's always this undertone of us and them when it comes to removable and fixed. And we kind of joke about it here, where it's just this, it's been around forever and it's really difficult to fight. And we work really hard to make sure that that's not the feeling in here, where, yeah, it's two very, very different worlds. It's no different than, our implant department and our CAD/CAM department, removable. There's attributes to each that are unique and run differently, but really working hard to bridge that fixed versus removable world. And, it's taken time, and it's taken a lot of work to take the really rigid processes and systems that we've put in place on the fixed side and find equal parallels on the removable side, because the two entities can't run the same. There are certain parts that just don't fit together in using the exact same systems. So we had to build, equal systems that are slightly different for that side of the lab as well.
That would be like a cultural integration plan, right? Was that something that you thought about prior, or how did it look then, and what does it look like now?
It was definitely on our radar before we moved into the acquisition. We didn't really put a whole lot of pen to paper as far as what it would look like, mostly because it's so personality dependent. You have to get to know the people before you can understand what motivates them and how they learn and what really gets them excited about change. Some people are just naturally born to love change. It's a small population, but they're out there. Most people have some level of discomfort or fear when it comes to change. So getting the opportunity to get to know the people and get an idea of what excites them was the key. And we kind of leveraged that by saying, when we made the acquisition and we moved the lab into our facility, we said that the first several months, we're not going to change a thing. It's, you operate the way you operate with the clients you've been operating with. Ignore our systems. Don't worry about that on day one. Just get used to doing what you've been doing in a different building first and start there. Don't change anything else. And that was really the only part of that cultural shift project that we solidified, was that we're not going to change anything at the beginning. And that worked out really well.
I could see that, because change is hard and it could be intimidating a lot of the time as well. And because people are just unsure of like how things are going to look moving forward. So
Exactly.
that probably helps an awful lot with the morale in the removable section of your business, right?
Yeah, it did. You can't make it perfect, but you can do everything you can to eliminate as many of the stressors as possible.
Yeah. And I know that this lab was a totally analog process workflow, right?
Yep. Yeah, no technology at all. And in the small removable lab environment, a lot of times there really isn't even time to understand the technology that's out there. If you're working at the bench 8, 9, 10 hours a day, there isn't a lot of free time to stay up on the latest scanning and 3D printing technology. So, it's analog, but also almost a barrier between where you stand and what else is going on out in the world. So there was a kind of a culture shock when it came to, all right, you're in here, you're established. Now we're going to invite in all of these technology partners and vendor partners that we meet with on a regular basis on the fixed side to present to us what our potential options are going forward in removable. And there was a lot of really new stuff to them that was being brought in here on a weekly basis for a while there to look at and evaluate and get comfortable with.
Yeah, and that could be exciting to some, but it could be intimidating to others. So how did you get both of those cultures to sync together?
Really, the focus was making sure that on the removable team, that those folks who were less excited about being a part of these new changes didn't have to be. Ultimately, we're all going to be on the same bus going in the same direction, but that doesn't mean you have to be on the front lines researching and comparing and analyzing. So what happened kind of naturally is you have the people that are excited about it and kind of rise to the top and become those leaders to say, I want to be a part of helping decide what we're going to change going forward. And everyone else that you can tell was not as comfortable, you make sure that there's an environment for them. We had a steady flow of analog work that was coming in the door. So they had the opportunity to focus on that analog work and start working with some of our managers on the fixed side to figure out how we can improve our analog work. How do we get more efficient in what we do there? So there's a lot of work to be done, and not all of it was really focused on change. Some of it was focused on process improvement that really didn't feel like substantial change to them. It was trying a different wax material that they've never seen before, or truly analyzing, where we're getting our carded teeth and how is that going to change going forward? Do we want to change that going forward? So there were varying levels of change that we were able to analyze and match that up with the people that felt it was the right fit for them.
It's a slow process, but a very rewarding one, right? I mean,
It is.
Really.
It is.
So people are people, right? And there's a culture at Concord. How did you get that new removable staff immersed into the culture of what is Concord? Did you have like parties or any staff appreciation days or anything like that to get everybody kind of in the mix and to get to know each other?
Yeah, we're luckily we're still a relatively small lab. So there's, 30, just over 30 employees, but on the tech floor where there's now 16, 17 technicians, our lab is laid out in a way that there's a lot of inclusivity in all the departments. So, the big push for us on the culture side was, on our fixed side, our culture is set in a foundation of we are professionals at what we do. We take pride in the work that we do. And, all of our fixed technicians believe that, and they put the work into the training, and they take pride in the work that they do at a level where they are professionals. We don't work for the dentist, we work with the dentist. And that mentality is really something that's learned over time. And what I learned that I didn't understand is how little of that mentality exists in the removable space. It was mind-blowing to me as a non-technician, the way removable labs are treated by dentists versus how fixed labs are treated by dentists. And it took a while to really get this concept across that if you work here at this laboratory, you are professionals and you will be treated as such. And, that kind of played out in a reality where there were two doctors that were longtime clients of the removable lab that I ultimately had to fire. There were conversations that took place, and team members here at the lab were spoken to in a way that, quite frankly, I don't allow anyone to speak to my team members that way. And it wasn't something that I was aware of that happened so often in the removable space, because it just, from my experience, doesn't happen on the fixed side. So to really drive home this concept that, you show up to this building every day, you have incredible knowledge, you have incredible experience, and the people that we work with either respect that knowledge and experience, or they're not the right ones for us to be working with. And, that takes some time to really get some true belief in that, if you haven't been in that space for a while.
No, absolutely. And it's so beautiful to hear you speak like that, because you know what, this profession is such an admirable profession. What these technicians do on a daily basis to really, you're doing such a great thing for these patients, being able to smile, being able to form words and chew food. I mean, enjoy life. I mean, really, that's what they're doing on a daily basis. That's what their incredible talent is providing, another human being, and it should be looked at in that manner. Absolutely. I believe that. So that's so beautiful to hear, Mike. I know there were a lot of pain points at the start, and I'm sure a lot of people and lab owners are out there who are deciding, hey, I want to either develop a removable department, or I want to expand and grow my removable department. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about some of the pain points and maybe some of the solutions to those pain points in the beginning?
Yeah, the biggest miscalculation that I made across the board was in time. It took a lot longer for us to get to where we wanted to go than I thought it would. And that's, not a huge deal as long as you're not stressing about it. We had a very clear path that we were going to acquire the removable lab, bring them in an analog capacity, get all of our systems in place that mirror or as closely mirror as possible what we do on the fixed side, clean up a lot of the redundancy in, pickup and delivery systems, clean up all the auxiliary stuff, and then start the conversation about transitioning into digital, whether it's a full transition. At that point in time, a year, we see how quickly things are changing in the digital denture space. The conversation a year and a half ago was very different than it is now. So at that point, it was more of a, should we consider digital, was the conversation we were expecting to be having, or to what capacity should we be moving into digital? Now that's shifted, where there's a lot of great options, and it's not a matter of if, it's how are we going to do this? So getting from that acquisition point to where we are now, which is starting to bring in digital, took 6 or 7 months longer than I thought it was going to. And, that's okay. So my advice would be let the process play out the way that feels natural. Don't force it, because in forcing is where you lose some of that acceptance from the team. And the acceptance from the team is crucial, because you need their knowledge and you need their experience. And if they don't feel that their knowledge and experience is valuable to the process, then they're not going to be as forthcoming with giving you that knowledge and experience. So let the process happen at its own pace would be my biggest piece of advice. And quite frankly, I was blind to, at a certain point, 15, 16 years ago, I came into this industry on the fixed side and I knew nothing. So I had to learn as much dental technology as I could. And I for some reason, I thought that was easier. It must have been a lot harder at the time, and I just kind of blocked it out. But, learning terminology and all the things associated with removable that are different from fixed, I didn't give myself enough time to do that. I needed more time to do my homework, and, taking that time to make sure that even if you're not the technician at the bench who's going to be doing the work, being able to understand and communicate and speak the language in a way that allows you to, manage and help them grow is crucial. You can't wing it. You have to put in the time, you have to do the work. And I'm still learning, and that I'm never going to know everything that I need to know, but I'm going to keep trying the best I can.
Education is key, right? Everything is changing so fast. On a daily basis, there's a new resin that's coming out, there's a new printer that's coming out, new mills. Technology is just getting much more advanced on a daily basis. So it's like, don't you feel like you're learning every day? Because I know I feel like I am. I come from the clinical side, I'm a hygienist, and it took me, a good 2 years to just kind of get abreast of a lot of the laboratory technology and processes. And it's interesting and it's amazing what we can do now. It really is.
It is. And plans change so quickly. Even looking at the, digital integration plan that we started working on 5 or 6 months ago, it's entirely different, to what's actually happened. So if anything, we're shifting from a model of spending a lot of time building really detailed future plans to shifting more towards a model where we move a little bit slower, but in a more reactive way, where we're not so focused on what our plan looks like, but we're more analyzing every fork in the road that we come to and figuring out what's the best avenue to take.
What do some of your workflows look like now, the workflow process? Is it more, you're still basically analog, or are you starting to introduce some of the digital processes into the analog laboratory?
We were able to move a few products digital immediately, only auxiliary products. So we were printing night guards. We stopped pressing flexibles and we moved the flexible into our milling department. So those were things that were crucial. The removable team wasn't all that sad to see those leave their room and go into the digital side. And that was crucial because we needed to free up time. You need to have time for that team to be available to learn new things and analyze new things. So we did that right away, and that worked out really well. That's where we kind of immediately halted on any digital transition. Where we stand now is all of our patient-facing work, the actual live cases that are leaving the laboratory, those are analog processed the way they've always been. We have all of the digital equipment in-house. We've completed our training. We're now on the in-house R&D side of things, where we are producing test cases, we are sampling, characterization kits, you name it. We are getting all the bugs out right now, but not on any live cases. As far as our clients are concerned, none of this exists. And when we feel that we're ready, then they'll know about it.
What will probably be the first item that you're going to be offering to your clinical teams?
It's different than what I expected it to be. We've formed some relationships with some health clinics in the state of Massachusetts that, we have a subsidized health program in the state called Mass Health, and they have a really strong dental program. And there's a really, really high demand for strong quality, but inexpensive dentures, full denture products. So, my original rollout plan was that full denture would be the last thing that we would start to convert to. We'd do our research and everything else, but we have several clinics lined up that know that this process is happening here at the lab, and they're interested in becoming beta tests for us once we're ready to roll. So when we feel confident, it looks like the first true digital product we'll move into is actually a full printed denture to service those community health centers and the demand that they have, which is exciting, because it's the providers that work at these health centers are so, focused on their patient care and so excited by new technology that they are going to be an amazing partner for feedback and helping us tweak our workflows and adjust what we need to adjust as we move into this. So that's probably going to be where we start first. And then, we'll backtrack everything else into the system.
That's amazing. That's exciting. I mean, there's so much growth and development as far as workflow, as far as resins go, as far as printers go. So you're going to start with a fully printed denture. Have you really started looking? I mean, I know you're testing a lot of resins right now. I mean, what do you think you're going to be using as far as a resin goes and as far as a printer goes?
Yeah, we decided to go with the Dentsply Lucitone printed denture option. And that was, we looked at a lot of them, and there's so many of them that are amazing. For me, the piece of the puzzle that was really important was understanding where our dentists are potentially going to be worried. This is a big change for them. How do we do everything we can to kind of ease that concern? And the simplest answer for that is the Lucitone product that they've been used to, for decades now in the analog side. This is the same material, and even from our denture, team's standpoint, they're comfortable with that material. They've used it. So it's similar in many, many ways. And that's a comfort level. So we made that decision. The other part of the product that I liked is that it's a fully complete system. We are able to get all of the products and materials that we need. We're able to get the training that we need and get the support that we need. So that was a crucial component in that decision. On the printer side, we are starting with Asiga, that we had an Asiga in-house. We had multiple printers in-house, but the Asiga was a really comfortable workhorse for us. And there's that balance between having the best, most expensive equipment, but also knowing that this is a new product line. So balancing the business decisions that go into deciding how much do you invest and how much risk do you take on in order to move into something brand new with no track record. So the Asiga was a really great, reliable machine that we had been using that fit in a price point that wasn't horrifying to say, all right, we're going to go buy several more of these in order to get started in this new product line. So we have 2 of the Asiga Maxes and 2 of the Asiga Pros designated just for, removable printing right now.
So basically you'd be printing teeth and bases at the same time and being able to bond together and do the whole workflow process. What about designing? I mean, did you rely heavily on your fixed designers to be able to design these dentures, or train your removable staff to be able to do the design?
We are currently training our removable staff. We relied heavily on our fixed CAD/CAM department, and they were essentially tasked with teaching the team 3Shape. To say, all right, forget designing a denture. Let's teach them where all the buttons are and start there and get with that comfort level on going from no computer screen to computer screen. And very lucky for us, there were a couple members of the removable team that were tech savvy, and they just really took to it really quickly. So we've built kind of this hierarchy of who's comfortable at this level is now teaching someone who's just one level below in the comfort level. So our plan is to have all of our design done in-house, but we have formed strategic partnerships with a lot of great outsourced designers. So that from a capacity standpoint, we're never caught in a position that is uncomfortable for us. And we are going to be leaning on Zahn. Luckily we have a facility local to us here in Massachusetts. So there's the ability to do continued 3Shape training and removable. We're going to take advantage of that. And really, like we've done on the fixed side, position ourselves to be flexible when it comes to launching a new product. My dad jokes all the time that the lab space it's like going fishing. You could come back with one fish today, or the delivery drivers can come back with 600 fish. There's really no way to predict that. And having flexibility in these product lines is crucial on day one, because if we send out our first digital flipper and that dentist falls in love with it and texts a picture to 800 of their friends, there's no reason that, you have to be prepared for the fact that one can turn into 500. And what does that path between 1 and 500 look like, and how do you prepare for it?
Right. What are those options, and what do you need to do to make sure you get your product out, right? That's part of it. I mean, yeah, you did say you rely on Zahn, which is great. I was going to ask you about the training and what happened when you buy a piece of equipment. Like, what does that training look like? Or when you ordered, the first time, the LDP, like what training went into that?
Yeah, I mean, Dentsply did an amazing job with their in-house training that they did for us to make sure the comfort level was there. And the great part about using partners like Zahn and Dentsply and the people that we are most comfortable with is we can link all of those brains together and say, all right, we have an issue. We don't know if it's a Dentsply issue or is it a 3Shape issue. Well, the person who can help us with that is Zahn. So let's start at Zahn tech support and work our way back from there. On the fixed side, we had gotten away from that because we had built this environment where we only use 3Shape scanners. We only use Roland mills. We built this environment where we are 100% comfortable with all of the equipment that we do. We've been doing all our own repairs. It's no different than someone who built their own car. We are that level of comfortable with the equipment that we're using. Now we've got all this new stuff in here. So it's exciting to start down that road again of learning everything there is to know about the new equipment that we have.
Right, and you need support. I mean, Dentsply was great with us too. I happened to go down with our technical support team to Charlotte to their education center, and we were actually printing, and tech support can do all of that, but I've never done that before, and constructing our own dentures, and they were fantastic. But that's where, our tech team, they get their hands dirty. So when you get a call, for a fact that they can fix this because they've gone through it all. They've troubleshooted everything, especially with equipment, but also with materials as well. So definitely, we have that comfort zone, and all of our customers have that comfort zone. They know they can rely on us for, the help that you need to keep your cases moving. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? We can't stop because a mill went down. We can't stop because a printer. We have to get everything back online so that you can service your patients, because they're your patients just as well as those dentist patients as well. Yeah. So at the end of the day, your cases are going to a human being and who need that to function. So rely on tech, especially our technical support. They are the real deal. That I can tell you for sure. So we talked about training. As far as polling, I'd love to poll our audience, if you don't mind, really quick, and let's see what we have. I'm going to talk about digital workflow. So I want to know, our audience out there, are you using a digital workflow when producing a removable appliance in your laboratory? I'm going to launch that question right now, and if you wouldn't mind just answering for that, so Mike and I can comment on it. So, Mike, I just want to talk about, what's your roadmap? Do you have a roadmap in place for your goals for next year for your removables? Like, what does that look like, or what are you forecasting?
Yeah, they've shifted slightly, and I like the where we've settled. We have no intentions of discontinuing any of our analog workflows as it stands
Mhm.
right now. We see the evolution of the digital materials will continue to change. So it feels premature to say this is our product and will be our product and forever. So we view the foreseeable future as a prescription that has both a digital and an analog option on it. So for us, the roadmap going forward is as we wade out into the waters and get these digital products out there in the world, seeing what the popularity split is. Do we have people rushing towards the digital option, or do we have a 50-50 split, and we can then reconfigure our workflows and our environment to suit that. We started an expansion project here at the laboratory. We're adding close to 5,000 square feet to the lab. And, at the beginning of that project, a lot of it was geared towards digital removable, and a lot of it still is, but it's shifted more towards digital in general. We've shifted the philosophy that we don't have a centralized CAD CAM department anymore. What we're going to see is, yeah, there's a centralized CAD CAM brain that functions in the crown and bridge space, but there's going to be 2 or 3 design stations in the implant department and 2 or 3 design stations in the removable department. And the
Mhm.
CAD CAM world is growing spider legs that are going to stretch out into each department. So our goal is really to build the lab and build the environment in the lab that can move in whatever direction the market takes us. And, on the digital removable side, there's so many variables that you can add in there. The product that comes out of the machine is beautiful, but there's such an opinion out there on what's beautiful and what's acceptable for this patient and not acceptable for that patient. So you can add in the characterization kits, and
Mhm.
you put that concept in front of our fixed team, and they're like all excited because that's their world. They want to take something and make it as pretty as humanly possible. And we're doing the R&D on that, but we haven't figured out what the market is demanding as far as a final product yet. So we are making sure that we are building a solid option for all of it, so that we have a product that fits every need. And then we'll start to gather the data once we're out there selling product as to what's popular and what is communicating well to the doctor. So it's exciting. We're in that phase where you don't really know where it's going to go. And it's hard as a business owner to be in that position, but the excitement of it is building, where you feel prepared for whatever's going to come, and
Mhm.
it's waiting for the answer. And I'm excited to see where the next year goes for us.
Yeah, it's taking it one day at a time, right? One day at a time. It's
Yeah.
all good stuff. I do have answers to the poll, and basically 67% of our attendees are using a digital workflow when producing removable appliances, and 33% are not. So, what would you say to those 33% as far as, hey, this is how I would get started if I was going to start like you did a year ago? Like, what do you think first steps would be?
Yeah, the first step is get that comfort level. I know there's this weird pressure building out there that like you need to get into it or else you're going to fall behind. Well, get rid of that, because in any business, even if it's needed, if you're not ready for it, you won't be successful with it. So get into that headspace of going on as many webinars as you possibly can, at trade shows. Take a look at all the different materials and production processes. Start to find your level of comfort. Obviously, if you can write a big enough check, you can have anything you want, but you need to figure out what are the potential technologies and product lines that will fit your laboratory. And everyone is different. That's the hard part, is figuring out based on the age and demographic of your team and who you work with. How big is your team? What's your technology footprint as it stands? There is a system that will work for everybody. It's just taking that time to find it. And identify it. That doesn't mean buy it, that doesn't mean jump in with both feet, but find it, identify it, and then start to get comfortable with it. And when the time is right, and you'll know, because that fear that goes along with should I or shouldn't I go for this goes away. And that's when you know that you've done all the research you need to do, and you've reached a level of comfort where you're willing to take the risk, because it is a risk. I mean, I'm bringing in a whole lot of equipment, spending a whole lot of money on stuff, and we haven't sold a single product yet. And that's nerve-wracking, and it's going to be, but that's the only way you're going to grow and change and find future success, is to find the calculated risk that works for you in your environment and in your stage of life, and go for it.
Would you say also, I mean, to start out slow and maybe perfect one restoration or one appliance, and say, okay, I'm gonna start slow and maybe go with mouth guards first, or like you're doing, going with a printed denture first? Is that something that you suggest?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the comfort that came to us from producing night guards was something that we never even thought about. As a fixed lab, we didn't push night guards. We didn't produce them, but we had the technology here to do it. We were probably selling, I don't know, 5 or 10 night guards a week. We were using the key splint materials, really great for us, designing them, no problem, but we didn't push them. And then, now that we've migrated into the removable world and they've become a product for us, we're producing, I don't know, a couple hundred of them a week. And it's the comfort level that comes with going through that production process is really comforting. that you realize, okay, we did this, it's working really well, the product we're making is satisfactory for the patient, it's satisfactory for our doctors, it's profitable for us here at the laboratory. I can take that map and copy and paste it to the next product. It doesn't need to be an all or nothing. I tasked my team with saying, we're going to go to market with a fully planned, complete digital offering that mirrors our removable, our analog offering, but that doesn't need to be the roadmap that you choose, and that was the sliding scale that I needed to work out and figure out what is the level of risk we're going to take in this R&D venture. But finding the one that works for you is the absolute way to success.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about, now starting with printed dentures, I hear a lot about an economy denture versus a high-end denture. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that, and what does that look like with Concord's plan?
Yeah, what's interesting is what that definition is for all of the different manufacturers out there. We learned very quickly that, other than this concept of high impact versus low impact, there's not a lot of really rigid framework outside of that, where it comes to analyzing the strength. For a lot of people, an economy denture is just less aesthetic. Some people use a less strong material. So it really comes to the lab to decide what is your baseline going to be. And for us, we decided we are staying completely clear of a low impact denture. For us, from a marketing and education standpoint, we determined that, fit, form, function, and strength are things that we're going to just level the playing field across the board. That if you buy a denture from us, whether it's analog or digital, you can expect a standard of fit, form, function, and strength. We're relying economy versus non-economy is strictly an aesthetic component. How much hands-on time a skilled technician is spending to either design or characterize your denture when it's done.
That makes total sense to me, because honestly, the strength is so important, because wear is a major issue when you're talking about, dentures.
And from the marketing and customer service standpoint, you have to prepare yourself for fielding future problems. And if you've got this variable in there where, there's 2 different strengths of denture out there that you're producing, and the wear on each is different, and the patient care of each is different, your customer service team that's fielding, and your tech support team that's fielding questions and problems with future cases, that adds so many levels of variability to helping diagnose the issue and ultimately solve the problem. So if out of the gate you keep it as simple as possible, that was the decision that we went with to make sure that we're helping our future selves as much as possible.
Great. I'm going to throw up another poll if that's okay with you. We're going to see what our next question is going to be. I'm sorry. Hold on just 1 second. Having a little technical difficulty here with this one. That was the old one. Here we go. So now I want to know, are you 3D printing? And what are you 3D printing to all of our attendees? Denture bases, denture teeth, both, or neither? That should be pretty interesting to see.
Yep.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you spoke with your dental dentist about what you were doing. Did you get in touch with the analog removable client list and say, hey, you know, this is who we are, we're coming in, and this is what we plan to do, and this is what, you know, it's going to look like a year from now?
Yeah, we have a trusted group of advisor clients that we've known forever. And the kind of unique opportunity that we had was that being so new into removable, that, the removable lab had their small list of clients, but on the fixed side, we had 400 plus clients that we've never done a single removable case with, so all of our conversations have been fixed based with that population. So it was really easy for us to approach them and pick their brains on what they're seeing for removable, because we don't know, we didn't even have an idea of how much removable was being done in each of these practices. We had done some polling way back to kind of figure out the dollar volume to make sure that there was a reason for us to get into the space, but we didn't know specifically. So, we spoke to a few doctors that, admittedly don't do a lot of denture, but they do some. And we're picking their brains about what their pain points were and what their challenges were and why they weren't happy. And a lot of them, no different than any other technology that's made its way into this industry, didn't have amazing feelings about digital dentures. And the reason is no different than the first few docs who tried full contour zirconia 15, 16 years ago. They said, it just didn't seem ready. And when you ask them, how long has it been since you tried it? They said 2 or 3 years. Well, yeah, it wasn't ready then. It was a very different product than it is now. So we stepped away from that side of questioning and moved more to what their thoughts were on the process. And the feedback that we got was pretty clear that removable for a lot of our clients is such a small portion of their book of business. Their ideal place would be not having to change what they do at all. They weren't interested in a system that required them to use a different kind of bite block than they've had in the past, or a different type of impression tray, or record information in a different way than they've been used to recording it. So that was really what we took to heart when we started on day one, figuring out how this was going to go, is build a digital denture offering that is different only on the manufacturing side. Build a system where what the dentist is used to doing chairside doesn't change. And we've stuck true to that. And, the few doctors that we're working with on a beta test standpoint, it's going well. And we're finding that there are areas that we can definitely tweak. And once we're comfortable with it and we can generate some educational material for them that guides them through the chairside process, we could change things a little bit to improve them. But
as far as like scanning and not taking, impressions.
Yeah, we're hoping that the scanning technology gets to that level, but until it doesn't, we can make the analog impression taking process for them as clean and quick and efficient as possible, and making sure that they are getting us the information that we need to get to a successful outcome in as few appointments as possible, and as a more systematic approach as possible. So providing them with a very clear checklist of what happens at appointment 1 became the easiest version of that, and letting them know that when that patient sits in the chair for the first time, here's what we need from you. And we have had a few clients that are kind of excited by it, that, in the past, they may have referred out the 1 or 2 removable patients that make their way into their schedule on a monthly basis. But now they're realizing that this isn't something that's out of reach for them, that they can be successful too.
Because you're actually supporting them and helping them along the way, which is so important. It's important to work as a team to be able to provide the patient with the best possible outcome,
Yeah, and we realized a lot of things that we didn't know. On the fixed side, we're able to do a tremendous amount of really great communication with photography, that our technicians can get to really amazing results by coaching our docs through technology. Well, chairside on a removable case, there's a lot more variables. There's a lot more components that are unpredictable. So, part of our new facility that we're building out is a department that is live chat stations where a technician can walk into a booth, the doctor can, FaceTime or Zoom into them live chairside with the patient and troubleshoot, because that need was there and we couldn't come up with a non-live alternative to helping them solve whatever it is they ran into chairside. So having the flexibility to say, all right, I followed your instructions, but I still ran into this brick wall before that patient's out of the chair. Dial up, we'll get you live on the screen with our technician, with your patient, and we'll troubleshoot and we'll problem solve, because losing chair time is, you can't on these products. There's just is not enough profitability on anyone's side in the removable space to lose chair time.
I love that. That's such a support to be able to do that in real live time, is amazing. Because like you're right, you have to dismiss the patient and then that's loss of their time. So that's amazing. Excellent. I have the results for our 3D printing, and it seems like most people are out there printing denture teeth, and they're probably using them on milled bases, it seems, because I don't see many people that are printing up denture bases. And some of our attendees are not 3D printing at all. So what would be a bit of advice for somebody trying to get their feet wet in 3D printing? Like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say that without a doubt, getting into 3D printing on the removable side, I would call like a step B or C. I think there are a lot of really great, simpler auxiliary products that you could consider printing. Some labs, the workflow, a printed custom tray is really, really nice and really clean and simple. Like we talked about night guards. If you're a full service lab, the ability to print implant insertion guides, and there's so many auxiliary products that printing has opened the door to that are a really low risk and low impact approach to that. And if you choose those products, that opens the door to the less costly printers. If you say we're going to go into this from an R&D mindset and say, all right, we're not going to be printing any biocompatible materials that go in the mouth. So it opens the door to us using alternative printers that aren't such a substantial investment. And once you've reached that comfort level in that material and that product and that machine, then you're going to be less worried about making the jump to something more substantial.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Words of advice that you would give to somebody who is looking to add a removable department, or changing to a digital workflow. What would your words of advice to that person be? Or even somebody who's looking to expand their removable department?
Yeah, I would say carve out the time. It's not one of those things that you can do as a side project. You can't do it well as a side project, I'd say. If it's something that you're serious about and it's an expansion and a change that will benefit your lab in a positive way, absolutely pursue it, but take the time to map out what it's going to look like for you and carve out the time that's necessary for you to put in the work that's needed to generate the product that you're going to be proud of. Because whatever your lab is doing now and the product that you're putting out, you've built a reputation around. You are known for what you're doing and your clients like it and they come back and they continue to buy it from you. You want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a position where your new product you're not as proud of it. You don't want to have to squint and say, it's good enough. So carving out the time and understanding that the process is a little slower than you might want it to be in the amount of trial and error that's involved, might be a little bit more substantial, but go for it. It is, I had a professor in school that used to say, if your business isn't growing, it's dying. And that's an extreme view, but to a certain extent, there's some truth in it, that if you're not at least aware of where your company can go next, or what you can do and you have the skills to do, then you've closed the door on yourself unnecessarily. So taking the time to envision where you want to go and decide what the future looks like for your lab, you got to at least give it a shot.
Yeah, you can, that's one thing, give it a shot. I love that, because it's true. You got to take chances, right? Sometimes, but do it smartly, right? Get really good, even at one thing to start. Am I correct on that?
If you get
Reputation.
into it and you realize, oop, I'm too early, or it's not right, make sure you get in a way that, isn't going to cost you too much if you decide that we're going to tap the brakes a little bit. So be methodical in how you make the move.
And really, there are so many resources out there, so many resources for people to get started, so much education, and there's so many people that want to help. And, Zahn being one of them, I have to say, like, we really do try to help in any way that we possibly can support. We don't sell a piece of equipment and just say, here you go. I mean, there's setting things up and, getting our technical support and our trainers out there to take the time. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. I mean, really, you need support. Take advantage of the support that's out there for sure. And even like you said, you love, Dentsply Sirona for the fact that they stood behind their product to be out there to train. So it says a lot,